At his peak, Neymar wasn't just unstoppable. He wasn't just breaking ankles, he was defying reality. Because what if I told you he didn't peak once, not even twice? Neymar reached 3 completely different levels. Each one has its own era. Each one a version of football the world had never seen before. This is not a story of one prime. It's the story of a man who ruled 3 different worlds of football, each time reinventing himself, each time redefining what talent actually meant. At his peak in Brazil, Neymar didn't look like a prospect. He looked like someone who had already completed a career. His story begins in Sao Paulo, in a neighborhood where football wasn't a hobby, it was a matter of survival. His family lived on tight margins, and his father, Neymar Sr., a former pro himself, became both coach and protector. By age 11, the kid wasn't just the best player on the street, he was the best player anywhere adults went to look for talent. But in Brazil, the best street kid usually burns out early. They peak at 15 and disappear by 18, and Neymar wasn't supposed to survive long enough to be a prodigy. At 13, Real Madrid sent scouts to Brazil, watched him train, watched him dribble through kids like they were holograms. Right after, they flew him to Spain for a trial. He passed it, the deal was ready, the contract was on the table. They were ready to sign him for 58 million euros, which, for a teenager in 2006, was unheard of. But here's the part nobody ever sees coming. Every player from South America dreams of Europe, yet he rejected the dream. He said no. He went back home, back to Santos, back to where he wanted to rise on his own terms. And once he returned, everything accelerated. In 2009, at just 17 years old, he made his senior debut. He didn't ease into professional football, he sliced through it. 14 goals in 48 matches. For a teenager, those numbers weren't promising, they were alarming. Teenagers don't dominate men, not in Brazil, not in the league of elbows, tackles, and broken shins. Neymar didn't adapt to the league adapted to him. Then came 2010, the year he stopped being a prodigy and became a force. 14 goals in 19 Paulista matches, 42 in 60 across the entire year. By this point, the question wasn't, is he special? It was, is he too good to stay in Brazil? By the time he turned 18, he was already being chased by Chelsea, West Ham, and half of Europe. By 19, he had a Brazil debut, and by 20, he had something players take entire careers to chase: 100 career goals. At 20 years old, playing in Brazil's top flight. Most players don't score 100 goals in their entire careers. Neymar did it before he could legally drink in the US. But nothing defines this era more than the 2011 Copa Libertadores, the tournament Santos had not won since 1963, the days of Pelé. Neymar didn't treat it like a burden, he treated it like destiny. 6 goals on the road to the final, 9 goal contributions in 13 matches. And in the second leg of the final, in front of a stadium packed with banners of the past, Neymar created a new one. One touch to settle, one touch to guide it into the corner. A goal that ended a 48-year drought and announced him not as the next Robinho or the next Ronaldinho, but as Brazil's next great hope. And just like that, he ended a drought older than his father. That same year, he won the Puskás Award for a goal that looked like a tribute act to prime Barcelona. He made the Ballon d'Or top 10 while still playing in South America. He became South American Footballer of the Year twice, beating global icons like Ronaldinho. And just when you thought Neymar couldn't burn hotter, came the 2013 Confederations Cup. 5 games, 4 Man of the Match awards, 4 goals, 2 assists. And in the final, against peak Spain, the tiki-taka empire, he didn't just perform, he dismantled them. The tournament belonged to him from start to finish. But here's the thing, prior to that game, Spain had not lost a competitive match in 29 games. Neymar broke them in 45 minutes. This was Neymar as Brazil's golden child, the street king who became a continental superstar, a player who dominated a country, a continent, and a national team before ever kicking a ball in Europe. Neymar had unlocked a level, but this version of Neymar existed in a world built entirely around him, a kingdom that worshipped his talent. The real test was coming next. What happens when the king leaves his castle and walks straight into Messi's? When Neymar finally left Santos in 2013, the world already knew what he was. Europe was waiting to see what he could become. Barcelona paid 57 million euros to bring him into a team already owned by Lionel Messi. Everyone expected him to quietly grow beside the greatest player to ever play the game, because that's the unwritten rule in Barca. When you join a team with Messi, you orbit him, you don't challenge his gravity. But from the moment he landed in Spain, Neymar's trajectory didn't slow, it sharpened. His first season wasn't explosive, but it was productive. 30 goal contributions in 41 games. He wasn't the star of Barcelona yet. He wasn't supposed to be, but he was learning the rhythms of La Liga, learning the tempo of Guardiola's inheritance, and learning how to play in a system where he wasn't the center of attraction. Then came Brazil, the World Cup on home soil in 2014. The expectations of an entire nation on his back, and why not? He was the last true Joga Bonito. Neymar responded with 4 goals in the group stage, man of the match performances. Every moment he touched the ball carried the kind of electricity football rarely sees. For a moment, it looked like he was destined to bring it home, but then it happened. A knee in the lower back from Juan Zúñiga fractured his vertebra and nearly ended his career. Even though Brazil made it past Colombia, they collapsed without him in the semi-final, in one of the darkest nights in football history, the 7-1 defeat to Germany. For Neymar, this was a disappointing moment, so in the season that followed, he ascended into a version of himself no one had seen before. Barcelona in 2014-15 wasn't just good, they were generational. Luis Enrique built a team that played like a controlled explosion, and Neymar became the most deadly element in it. 22 goals and 9 assists in La Liga, 7 goals in the Copa del Rey, 10 goals in 12 Champions League matches, joint top scorer with Messi and Ronaldo. He scored in the Champions League final. He scored in the Copa del Rey final. He scored in the Club World Cup final. Every decisive moment that season had Neymar's fingerprints on it. And yet, this was also the birth of something bigger. MSN, Messi, Suarez, Neymar. A trio so balanced, so destructive, that entire defenses collapsed before they even touched the ball. 122 goals and 64 assists in one season. Neymar wasn't just part of it, he was the cutting edge. Silky, unpredictable, ruthless, the perfect bridge between Messi's orchestration and Suarez's violence in the box. He finished third in the Ballon d'Or and looked, for the first time, like the true heir to world football. But even this wasn't his peak. The world didn't know it yet, but Neymar was about to create a moment so absurd it would rewrite Champions League history. In the knockout stage of the Champions League in 2017, PSG had just dismantled the most unbeatable version of Barcelona, 4-0. But then Neymar switched up and inspired a 6-1 comeback in the second leg, which to date is still the greatest comeback in Champions League history. This was the night when Neymar didn't play beside Messi, he played above him. 2 goals, 2 assists, a one-man rebellion against elimination. Anyone who watched that match knew exactly who made the miracle possible. But the next morning, the newspapers didn't show Neymar, they showed Messi. And for the first time in his career, Neymar understood something brutal. It didn't matter how bright he shone in Barcelona, he was still standing in someone else's light. And sometimes the only way to grow is to walk away from the shadow that hides you. But that frustration didn't kill him, it transformed him. This version of Neymar was reaching a peak even the MSN era couldn't contain, and the world was about to see it. In the summer of 2017, Neymar made a decision that nobody thought he would ever make. He left Barcelona. Not for money, not for comfort, but for something far more dangerous. In a sport built on hierarchy, he wanted to be the main character, the face of a project, the man the world chased, not the man chasing a shadow, which is why he made the decision that would define the next arc of his career. He walked out of Barcelona to build a kingdom of his own. Paris Saint-Germain activated his €222 million release clause, shattering the football economy and making Neymar the most expensive player in history by a margin so large it still hasn't been matched. He arrived in Paris with the pressure of a dynasty on his shoulders. Number 10, the poster boy, the centerpiece of Qatar's sporting revolution. And immediately, he delivered. His debut season produced numbers that didn't look real. 28 goals and 16 assists in 30 matches. League One looked too slow, too predictable, too easy. This wasn't Neymar adapting to a new league. This was the scariest version of Neymar. He created more chances than anyone at the club, completed more dribbles than the entire PSG midfield combined, and produced highlight reels that looked like a glitch in real football. Everything he wanted when he left Barcelona, the spotlight, the freedom, the throne Paris handed to him. But while PSG built their empire around him, another prodigy walked through the door, Kylian Mbappé, 18 years old, electric, French, the future of the national team. And instantly, he, not Neymar, became the future of PSG. It wasn't betrayal, it wasn't politics. This is simply what happens when two supernovas explode in the same sky. The world looks at the brighter one. Neymar wasn't being replaced, but he wasn't alone anymore. And in a project built on star power, being not alone is simply the first step toward not central. But even then, Neymar kept producing. In the 2018-19 Champions League run, he delivered some of his best football since the MSN era. Tight spaces, impossible angles, passes only he could see, the version of Neymar the world wanted to crown. But while Neymar's talents peaked, something inside his story cracked. For the first time in his entire career, Neymar's biggest opponent wasn't a defender, it was his own body. Between 2017 and 2020, he suffered 3 metatarsal fractures, 2 ankle ligament tears, a rib fracture, endless muscle strains. In total, he missed almost an entire season's worth of games across 3 years. Every time he climbed into form, something broke. Every time he hit elite rhythm, something cracked. The world saw the talent, Paris saw the star, Neymar felt the fragility. But even through all of this, when he played, he dominated. Like in the 2019-20 Champions League, when PSG finally reached the final. During this run, Neymar wasn't just good, he was sensational. He carried the team through Dortmund, through Atalanta, through Leipzig, creating, dribbling, and dragging PSG toward a trophy that had eluded them for a decade. He didn't win the Champions League, but he had finally won something far more important: respect. For those 3 years, even with the injuries, even with the pressure, even with Mbappé beside him, Neymar produced. 74 goals and 44 assists in 82 matches. That's 118 goal contributions, and he managed that despite missing nearly 400 days of football. At his peak in Paris, Neymar remained one of the world's best players, but this era revealed something painful. Neymar was shattering apart. The moments of brilliance that came in flashes instead of seasons, explosions of genius that never had the time to settle into legacy. The world waited for a sustained prime. Neymar kept giving us temporary God mode. And just when he looked ready to take back the spotlight, injuries turned from setbacks into patterns, and patterns into predictions. The next version of Neymar wasn't defined by magic, it was defined by survival. Because after PSG, Neymar wasn't fighting to be the best player in the world anymore. He was fighting to stay on the pitch long enough to remind people he once was. By 2020, Neymar should have been polishing his legacy, not fighting to hold on to it. The talent was still there, untouched, unmatched, unfair. But the body that once danced through Europe started betraying him. Between 2020 and 2023, Neymar missed more minutes than he played. Every season felt like a loop. Return, dominate, get hurt, disappear, come back, dominate again, break again. You couldn't predict when Neymar would explode. Yet, even in decline, his numbers refused to decline with him. 19 goals and 12 assists in 2020-21. 26 goal contributions in 2021-22 despite missing half the year. 34 goal contributions in 2022-23 before his ankle collapsed. The production stayed elite, the availability didn't. And then came the decision that ended the European chapter. Not because he was finished, not because he couldn't keep up, but because, inside PSG's chaos, he became the easiest one to blame. Mbappé became the face, Messi became the symbol, Neymar became the burden, so he walked away, leaving Paris with 118 goals, 77 assists, 3 league titles, and the club's most electric European run since its creation. He didn't leave Europe as a failure. He left as a player Europe never truly understood. And then life delivered the final test. The ACL tear, the meniscus rupture, a year out, then another setback. And suddenly, the boy who once carried Brazil's hopes returned to the only place that ever felt like home, Santos, where it all began. He is 33 now, slower, more fragile, risking missing a World Cup for the first time since he was 18. The world doesn't fear him like it did before, but even then, Neymar still pops up every now and then, to show he has it in him. Like the Olympico goal against Corinthians, bending straight from the corner flag, reminding everyone that talent like his doesn't age, only the legs around it do. And that's Neymar's final act. Not the unstoppable force he once was, not the heir to Messi and Ronaldo, but a genius whose brilliance shines in flashes, enough to remind us of what he was, and enough to haunt us with what he could have been. Because even in decline, there will never be another Neymar. Neymar didn't just have a prime, he had a career the world never learned how to appreciate. But he's not the only player whose story was misunderstood. If you want to see another genius whose peak rewrote football, watch the video on screen, and while you're there, don't forget to subscribe.